Hello, and welcome to the Artificial Podcast, with your host Nick Myers.
Artificial
Intelligence,
voice recognition, machine learning,
robotics,
actionable analytics.
It is Nick's goal to help everyone understand how AI and voice technology are reshaping our lives both personally and within organizations. Your glimpse into the growing world of AI and voice first starts now.
Nick Myers.
Nick Myers. Nick Myers.
Nick Myers.
Welcome to the Artificial Podcast. My name is Nick Myers, and I am here to help break down topics in emerging technology, artificial intelligence, and voice assistant tech to help everyone understand how these technologies are impacting our lives both personally and within our organizations. The Artificial Podcast is brought to you by Red Fox AI. Red Fox AI helps give brands a voice by leveraging the power of AI and voice assistant technologies like Alexa and Google Assistant. If you or your organization is interested in sponsoring an episode, please send an email to the Artificial Podcast at redfox-ai.com. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere that you stream podcast episodes. You can also follow the Artificial Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube by searching for the Artificial Podcast. Thank you for listening, and now on to this week's episode. Hey there, Artificial Podcasters. Welcome back to another week and another episode of the Artificial Podcast. Actually, this will be the last episode of the Artificial Podcast for the year. And since it is the last episode of the year, I thought that maybe we'd slow it down a bit. Well, maybe not slow it down, but...
And play some smooth jazz.
Yeah, smooth jazz, no. Well, there you go. I thought I'd bring Brett back onto the show because it's been a while since Brett and I have actually had a good discussion here on the Artificial Podcast. And especially since this is our end of the year show, I thought we'd do a bit of a reflection on what a gem of a year 2020 has been for all of us.
This is all I wanted.
And also what we can possibly expect in 2021 in the context of technology and some other things.
This is all I wanted, Nick.
2020.
This is all I wanted since the virus was announced, I guess, back in February. I remember I'm like, well, okay, there's a deadly virus coming to the United States. This is going to take at least a year and a half to get over it and get a vaccine. I just want to last. I just want to live to the end of the year so I can see all the highlights of this year and just look back and see the rewind of 2020. Because I just knew it was going to be a horrible year once that was announced, the virus.
So since you said rewind, can you imagine what the YouTube rewind of 2020 is going to be?
It's just going to be a bunch of people recording in their living rooms. There'll be no outside YouTube.
Oh, man. What a year. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about 2020 other than what a year. I think whoever
I kind of like this year because it's really making me realize that other years are way better.
No matter who you may be, I think we all can say that this was not the year that any of us expected whatsoever. And I promise I'm trying not to be negative right out of the hole here. This is more of a reflection. Trust me, there's some good stuff coming. But I think given what a different year 2020 has been, we quickly reflect on all that has happened in such a short period of time, because when you really think about it, although a year may sound long, when you actually live it, it isn't whatsoever. Would you agree with that, Brett?
A year? Yeah, a year is pretty short now.
Yeah, like I remember being a kid, and a year, like when you think of a year as a kid, it just seems like it's such a long time. Like I remember, Christmas would roll around and I'd be so sad because I'd have to wait a whole nother year.
That's
for
just
Christmas.
That's just time relativity though. Like when you're 6 years old, that's 1/6 of your life is a year. Now you're 26, I'm 28. That's 1/28 of our life. So of course it's gonna feel shorter.
I guess, but I don't know. Like this year has felt really long, but also incredibly short at the same time. So I say, Brett, we take a quick stroll down memory lane and reminisce about all of the different things that have happened in 2020.
Sure,
Well,
yeah, I'm down.
We kicked things off with Australia being set ablaze
Actually, before we start, I want the audience to know that I have no idea what Nick has cooked up here. He just brought me on and he wrote everything down because he's really good at writing. So if it seems like I don't know what's going on, that's why.
I swear to God, Brett.
What? I'm being transparent and honest.
Okay. Well, as we begin our stroll, let's kick back off with Australia being set ablaze back in January. And, that all in itself was a huge deal. That made global news. I think it was a couple billion animals that died. Brett and I, of course, have friends, good friends down in Australia. And we were in communication with them the entire time that was going on. And then as Australia was burning to the ground, Kobe Bryant died.
Oh, okay. This is kind of okay. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. And a lot of people love the guy around the world. And he did great things. And he was a great man.
Well, yes, I understand.
But you can't it's just funny to me that we go from like a country or a continent on fire and people's lives being ruined to Kobe Bryant.
Oh, okay. I get that sounds odd. And to those of you who are listening, of course, who may not be familiar with who Kobe Bryant is, because I know we have a global audience. Kobe Bryant was a very renowned NBA player here in the United States, but not just so much because he was an NBA player, but because he was very much a humanitarian. He did a lot for the community, just an all-around good person, was an inspiration to millions of people. And it wasn't so much that he died, it was how he died and how sudden it was.
It was sudden and shocking.
Such a freak and tragic accident, I think, is really what hit a lot of people there, Yeah.
I was pretty surprised too. I don't even watch basketball or anything. So
right. But even if you didn't really watch basketball in the NBA, you knew who Kobe Bryant was, at least in the United States, and I'm sure I'm not sure how popular he is around the world. His name may have permeated across the world, so just some context for those of you who may not know who he is. Then after Kobe Bryant dying, we almost got into World War III with Iran in the United States. Remember that happening? Don't you remember that, Brett, when they killed that general, and then all of a sudden it was them firing on military bases? And that just seems like that was minuscule in the scope of everything that happened this year, but that did happen.
Thank you, our great leader Cheeto.
Now power. Brett, now
what do you mean now?
Well, but I don't really like
you
okay, we can share our views, but I don't want to get I guess we've been political with this podcast.
I don't care.
Yeah, I know you don't care. Anyhow, World War III almost happened.
If you truly care, I'll edit it out.
World War III almost happened. U.S. almost got into conflict with Iran. And then the big kahuna after that, COVID-19, as we strolled into March with this disease starting to spread all over the world, nobody really knowing what to do.
We've grown so much from our first COVID-19 episode on this podcast.
Oh, yeah. I even think back to that.
No big deal, guys.
Yes, I do. I think back to when I was in denial and I didn't think it was a big deal. And I am grateful, given how I thought about this in the beginning and how much I traveled back in March, that I did not get this. And boy, oh boy, a lot has changed since COVID-19. And I don't really know what else to say other than that is the cornerstone of this year.
It's been quite interesting living this year and seeing the different ailments caused by COVID-19 coming out as we've learned about it.
Well, and then of course we've also been witness to what countries decided to handle it well and what countries decided to descend into hell in the United States. So we've COVID-19, I don't really know what to say about it because we've all been living this for the past year, and that's just the big old stamp on this envelope that is 2020. Then after that, of course, in the U.S., the revelation of murder hornets, which I felt like lasted about 2 days, and then everybody glossed over.
I don't even care about the murder hornets.
And then following that in the summer, we had the Black Lives Matter movement and the social justice protests that took place all over the world in the wake of the death of George Floyd. Very, 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 very big deal that was a very, very, very big deal. Yep. That
I still have
happened.
like over 60 videos on my phone saved of like police brutality.
Correct. And then it just felt like after George Floyd was murdered at the hands of police, it was just one after the other, after the other, after the other. So that happened. And then just, with all of that, we lost a lot of incredible people this year, including, and again, this is not a full list, but I just thought I'd pull people's names here that I think most people around the world are familiar with. Of course, we lost Chadwick Boseman. We lost Eddie Van Halen, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which was a very hard one to take for a lot of folks, especially in the United States. We lost Alex Trebek. We lost John Lewis, a champion of the civil rights movement. We lost Little Richard. We lost Sean Connery, Regis Philbin, Neil Peart of
I forgot all about these
Rush, and Kenny Rogers, just to name a few. So if all of that wasn't bad enough, we lost a lot of really good, inspirational people this year.
2016 ain't got nothing.
No. And then after that, more wildfires. The entire western half of the United States caught fire. And while all that was going on, we had the most active Atlantic hurricane season on record with 2 Category 5 hurricanes.
How many hurricanes did we have?
We had so many. They ran out of names and had to resort to Greek names.
Well, you see, that's what happens when the Earth is flat. The hurricanes can travel faster and longer distance.
And then, as all the hurricanes are coming to an end, just the cherry on top of this year, the 2020 U.S. presidential election, watched by the world, and we are still in the midst of that, ladies and gentlemen. We are still in the midst of that.
Now they're talking about January 3rd, like something's gonna, like the House of Representatives is gonna.
I don't want to hear any of it.
Win.
I don't want to hear any of it. In case you didn't know, Joe Biden won the election
on the 7th.
He is the president-elect, and Donald Trump lost, and that's the facts. Yeah. But unfortunately, we're still dealing with all of the craziness surrounding that here in the United States. So that is what happened in 2020. I know this is all, this and all of these are memories we may all just quickly want to forget, but to set the stage, I just thought we'd quickly run through this year one more time because it truly was a year unlike any other.
But you know what, Nick? When you get down to it, none of this matters.
No, it doesn't. And I know I just focused on all of the bad things there, but there was a lot of good as well. I wish I would have done more due diligence into the good, and we'll get into some of that. But there was a lot of good that happened this year as well. It just got so muddied by all of this crap.
It's just entertainment,
And then as I reflect on the year so far for me personally, Brett, what have I learned? This definitely was not a year that I had expected because as I think back to it, I had dozens of different talks, both domestically and internationally, lined up. We were really gonna grow Red Fox. We were going to do a whole bunch of different things. I was going to do a whole bunch of different things that just didn't end up happening because of how the year panned out. However,
I remember you talking about those things that you wanted to do.
However, in all of this darkness for me, there was a lot of light. So what have I learned? I learned that I have a lot to learn about running a business. It is not nearly as cut and dry as I thought it was. And I learned a lot about myself, what I'm good at, and what I'm terrible at this year. And I find that to be incredibly valuable, and I'm grateful for that. I also learned that I'm 100% an extrovert. Sitting alone every day in my home with no human contact screws with my mind. So there's that. I learned that I get my energy from helping to teach other people, and it has been very hard to work through that this year, not being up in front of others and giving talks. So I have been lucky enough, however, to do some virtual events that, have allowed me to do that. But I learned that I get most of my energy from helping teach other people, and that's something I hope to capitalize on more in our new world in 2021. I learned that I have an incredible support system in my life of friends from all over the world. Of course, Brett, of course, I know is rolling his eyes right now as I say that. My family, So that really stood out to me this year as well. And finally, I just in general have a lot to be grateful for. And I think this year showed everybody that we did really take a lot for granted, that our entire world that we once knew could be changed in an instant, and it happened. And it's never going to go back to the way it was. And I've really reflected on that, and I realized I truly do have a lot to be grateful for, and many things in my life I'm not going to take for granted on the other side of this, especially in 2021 and moving forward.
Did you wake up? Are you breathing? Be grateful.
And Brett has said this to me for years, and now I'm actually taking it to heart.
Yeah.
All right, Brett, what have you learned this year?
Staying inside sucks after a long period of time. Let me preface, after a long period of time, it rocked at first. I loved it. Didn't have to see anybody, could just be alone with my thoughts and just code all day.
Yeah, Brett was kind
perfect.
Brett was kind of built for this, but it has worn on him over time. I
get I have to like balance it, because I've also learned that I'm 50-50. I'm extrovert 50% of my life. I'm introvert the other 50%. I'm kind of like, vertidextrous,
Vertidextrous?
Yeah.
Are we going with that word now?
Like I would love to go to the bars and with my friends and see some other people and socialize, but I'd also like to stay home and code and by myself with my thoughts. It depends on what my social battery's at for the day or the week.
Social battery, ladies and gentlemen. Social battery. That is a term that Brett has used often this year.
Yes. Yeah. Whenever Nick's talking to me, I'm like, I don't want to talk anymore. And you're like, do you hate me? No, my social battery is at 1%. I need to charge it. I love to code. I'm getting very proficient at it.
Yes, you are.
JavaScript and Node.js.
You are.
I want to learn Python for the AI.
You are also an official Alexa AWS certified Alexa developer as of this year. So
yep, I passed that test via AWS.
Congratulations. I know you also got a couple of different certifications in some different coding languages, and in general, you just figured out a lot this year.
Yep, I'm also building my own mobile app, my own video game that I wanted to do, because I've always wanted to build a video game, but I never knew how to code. Since I learned how to code because of Red Fox, I now am building a mobile app.
Well, and let's just say Brett has figured out some really neat things in the back end for the stuff we do with our voice applications for Alexa and Google Assistant. So we don't need to get into all the specifics, other than just Brett has excelled with the coding this year.
Yeah, I do know Python, but I want to become proficient in Python as much as I am in JavaScript, because I don't feel like I'm at that same level yet. I want to travel again and see the world. I hate COVID. This sucks, and get me out of this horrible simulation. I forgot I love code in all capital letters. Like, I love code. Like I love gold from Awesome Powers.
Oh my God, people are not going to take us seriously after listening to this.
No, don't take me seriously. Take Nick seriously.
You're the CTO of our company. How are people not supposed to take you seriously?
I'm talking with the podcast. Don't take me seriously.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, in our business.
Okay. I do like the last point you made here. Get me out of this horrible simulation. I think more than anything this year, I have realized that we might very well be in a simulation like the Matrix. And everybody, we do have the opportunity to mess with that simulation and create things for ourselves. I'm convinced of this. Call me crazy.
What was that last part? I was daydreaming. What'd you say?
Are you kidding?
Sorry, I was reading something.
Never mind.
No, you said something about the Matrix.
I said I've been rereading your last note here about get me out of this horrible simulation.
Yeah.
And I think this is the first year where I truly have begun to think that we may just be in a simulation.
Yes.
That if we wake up to it, we can bend and manipulate to our liking.
Sure.
Okay, Brett thinks I'm nuts. Forget I said that, everybody.
Well, we have to take the pill first and get out of the simulation to bend reality.
Okay, we're not going down the Matrix rabbit hole.
All right.
Anyhow, so that's, reflecting on the year, reflecting on what it's been like, of course, for us, but reflecting on 2020 for the Artificial Podcast, I will definitely say, Brett, and I don't know if you agree with me, but I think out of everything this year, I think we saw the most success with the podcast, which truly warms my heart.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. Yeah, because we have done podcasts since 2017. It's just our first podcast wasn't really popular. And then we started this one and we got actual live guests on here. Thanks to Nick, by the way. Nick's really good at getting guests on.
Well, and I just think about, the reason we started this is to truly just help educate as many people as possible about all of the different things happening in emerging tech. And then, of course, if you've been listening to us for a while, you know that we focus very heavily on voice tech. We focus on AI. We try to focus on so many different things. And especially this year, what have we talked about? Let me just run through. I mean, we talked about so much. Right at the start of the year, we talked about blockchain. We had somebody on talking about that. Smart cities, voice tech, of course, design and user experience, artificial intelligence, linguistics, the Internet of Things, prop tech, humanity-centric innovation, and sustainable technology. We covered a lot this year, and I really would like to pat ourselves on the back for that, because when I started this, it was very much focused on AI and voice. But as I started talking with more people and really thinking about it, AI and voice is important, don't get me wrong, but all of these emerging pieces of tech are going to work with one another, whether we want them to or not, heading into the next 10 years. So that's why I really have taken the philosophy this year to try and talk with as many different folks as possible and really dive into some different areas of technology that I don't really think get as much of a spotlight as other areas do.
Yeah, it's been, I love editing this podcast because you have such a diverse group of people on here that bring on their ideas. So listening through it all and editing it, I learned a lot from people that I would have never even heard of, without
and that's valuable. And I hope that the listeners feel the same exact way. I mean, our listenership this year has grown substantially. I mean, in the last week alone, we've had, 917 unique listeners, which, compared to some other podcasts may not be that much. But to us, we've only started with a couple dozen. I mean, that's a huge amount of growth for us.
And compared to our first podcast in 2017, the 2 viewers
that had zero,
when we had 2 viewers, you and I.
Right. Right. So yeah, I couldn't be happier for the podcast and how it has evolved this year. And of course, to everybody listening, of course, I'll get into my teary-eyed thank you at the end of the episode, but it's just been a very good year for the podcast. So with that being said, I would just like to extend a sincere thank you to all of the guests that we had on the show this year. I will quickly run through every single one of the guests who very kindly and willingly gave me their time to chat with about the things that they're working on in emerging tech or the industries that they're involved in. So quickly, thank you very, very much to Alex Shaw, Martin Stratton, Divyansh Churasia, Charles Reed Anderson, Gaurav Mishra, Brett Kinsella, Dr. Terry Fisher, Rafiki Kai, Kumar Rangarajan, Vinayak Junjunwala, Tom Still, Tim Kobe, Daniel Hill, Sarah Andrew Wilson, Levi Sawyers and Sean Withers, Mark Tucker, Adrian Simple, Jeff Adams, Carrie Hoffman, John Stein, Petra Buter, Tim McElrath, Nick Saka, Micah Gronewege, Ryan Lush, Brian Romley, Lawrence Lynn, Roger Kibbe, Vicky Cantrell, Bobby Bryant, Mikhail Stanislawik, Lauren Johnson, Emerson Sklar, Pete Dulcamara, Donald Buckley, Misha Fagenson, and Robert Scoble. Thank you, all of you, for giving your time to really just share your incredible insights about technology with the listeners of the Artificial Podcast. And, Britt, as I read through all of these names and reflect on all of the incredible folks that I've had the pleasure of chatting with this year, it really makes me feel incredible to see that so many different people from all over the world, people from India, people, of course, from North America and the US, people from Asia, people from Europe. I mean, we truly live in an incredible age that I can even chat with people from all over the world
it's crazy by
using Zoom. I mean, that's incredible. So thank you so much, everybody, again, for your contributions this year. It's incredibly, incredibly appreciated. So what do we have on the table for 2021 then, right? So, of course, our format has been relatively the same for the last year and a half since we've been doing this. where we have a series of episodes where I interview somebody. And of course, Brett and I occasionally get together and do an episode. It's very audio based, right? But in 2021, Brett and I are really going to try and shake things up a bit because we really want to try and grow the podcast and do some different things. So some things that you'll be noticing as we're going to put way more of an emphasis on video-based content and maybe even live streaming. I'm excited about that. We are going to focus more on sponsorships. So if you are somebody who thinks that your organization can find some value from sponsoring an episode or a series of episodes, please feel free to reach out to us. And finally, a website, which I can't believe we've been doing this for about 1.5 years without a website. I mean, all we've been using is anchor.fm to host and syndicate all of our different episodes with the different podcast platforms. Yeah. Anchor.fm has a page, but we actually don't have an official website. So we're going to get that fixed early on in 2021. So those are some ideas that we have for next year.
Well, thank God that you can make a website really fast.
I mean, if you've built websites before, you definitely know that it's not rocket science. It's just time, and you need to know how to use the tools available. But yeah, so those are some of the things you can expect for next year. So I'm really looking forward to that. I hope you are too, Brett.
I am. 2021.
So with that, I thought we would then quickly transition into, what's the current state of the world and COVID-19. Of course, because we've deliberately focused 2 of our episodes this year on COVID-19. Why are you laughing?
First one was, don't worry. Second one was, do worry. Sorry.
Yeah, our first episode was, it's no big deal. And then the next episode was, okay.
We were wrong.
You're wrong. And you should hide in your house for the next several months. So, yeah. But, as we're recording this on December 12th, the good news is we are nearing the light of the end of the tunnel. I think it's made global headlines now, of course, that there are vaccines that are starting to be approved by different world governments, of course, most notably the Pfizer vaccine right now. And as of yesterday, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration just approved emergency use authorization for the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine here in the United States. I know it's already been approved in the UK. More approvals will follow around the globe.
I think it's going to be distributed this Monday or Tuesday, right?
I think their plan is, they have to come up with a plan on who to give it to, of course. But obviously they're going to start distributing it early next week, I believe, here in the U.S. The Moderna vaccine will be soon to follow. So there is some light at the end of the tunnel here, which is why, just hang in there, everybody. We only got a couple more months of hunkering down, right? Like, it's been long. It's been hard. I know that. Believe me, I more than anybody know that. But it's almost coming to an end. We are almost there. So just hang on. Be responsible. And wear a mask. Social distance.
Yeah. Remember, even if you take the vaccine, to wear a mask because you can still spread it.
Right.
If you have a vaccine.
I
want to see people getting the vaccine and not wearing masks. Thinking they're okay, because they have some force field around them that blocks the virus.
Limit contact with anybody outside of your household. Don't go to any event indoors where it's more than 10 people. Honestly, probably even less than 10 people if you're in the United States. So we're almost there. I don't want to say I promise because I have nothing to do with this, but the writing is on the wall, right? And with that, I thought we'd quickly run through some statistics here just to put this all into perspective, of course, from where we were back in January, where, there was a couple thousand cases in China to where we are now globally. So these stats are as current as of today, December 12th, 2020, from Johns Hopkins University's global COVID tracker map that they have. So as of today, the total number of global cases since this began are 71,430,885, and the total number of global deaths is 1,601,238. So that's worldwide.
That's crazy.
Definitely, definitely. I'm figuring out what I'm trying to say here. Just honestly, way more than I thought there would be by this time.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's not a lot because there's 8 billion people and 71 million.
Right, but you still consider that it's still 71 million people, Brett. Like that's not a small number by any ways or means. When you consider
a big number, I'm just looking at the 8 billion people.
Right, but you consider the number of diseases that exist all over the world, it's nowhere near.
Correct,
I mean, I can't say that because I don't have those statistics in front of me, but
yeah, true.
It's just incredible how quickly this has spread in several months. Now,
also, that doesn't put into that statistic doesn't show people that have gotten over it either. So.
Correct. So now we go to the U.S., who is the global leader in cases and deaths. So what does that look like? So the total number of U.S. cases currently stands at 15,998,522. And the current number of total deaths is 296,977. The second highest total, for some perspective, of deaths in the world is Brazil at 180,437. That is a 60.75% difference, which is purely mind-blowing.
That's sad.
It is. I have no words, quite frankly, to
how
to describe.
That's just people not following the rules.
I have no words. Whether you're somebody listening from the United States or elsewhere in the world, I truly have no words.
That's just people not caring
for that number.
We're in our own little spoiled bubble in this country.
That's why it's the only words I can think of are just sad, disappointed. I cannot believe how poorly this has been handled in the United States, and how really a very large chunk of the population has chosen to act related to this. It didn't have to be this way.
It didn't.
And I was just talking with you, Brett, of course, before we started recording. We're approaching almost 3,000 daily deaths, which is just about as large. We're approaching almost 3,000 daily deaths which is just as. Okay, you may have to edit this. I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say.
We're approaching almost deaths a day as a 9/11.
We're approaching almost 3,000 daily deaths, which is just as much as.
What are you trying to do? You having a stroke?
We are approaching almost 3,000 daily deaths, which is equal to the number of deaths that we had on September 11th, 2001 in the U.S., which is just tragic. I have nothing else to say there other than all we can hope for is that people start acting more responsible and we can get this vaccine as distributed as much as possible. But as we know, with how bad COVID has been, it has also had a very large impact on just the world around us, and specifically on technology. And I think for the rest of the time we have in this episode, I would really like to take a look back on 2020, how COVID affected technology and how it changed the world, and some predictions that I have for 2021 and really the subsequent years that follow.
Which is completely just for fun because, what if we did this back in 2019 at the end? I'd like to make some predictions for 2020 and see how it's going to go.
The thing is, we did make some tech predictions at the start of 2020. There is an episode.
Yeah, I also predicted I was going back to Sydney, Australia.
Right, Brett? But I hold on to this, where in one of my talks that I've been giving called AI and Into Work as We Know It, for 2 years, I have been predicting the mass distribution of the general workforce. And it happened. Not saying that I have the all-knowing, all-seeing stone here, but
yeah, COVID just sped it up.
Correct. And there's many incredibly intelligent people I've talked to this year who have echoed the same thing. Anyhow, I thought we'd quickly take a look at some major areas that COVID affected technology. affected our world as we head into the next normal, and what what the other end could look like as we head into 2021, not only for technology but just the world in general. So what do you say, Brett?
I'll tell you what, the next end he's gonna look like a mouth because this end looks like an ass.
What?
Okay, you ruined it. You didn't get that? You're like, what's the next end? I'm like, well, the next end's gonna look like a mouth because this end looks like an ass. Boo! You suck. Just go.
All right. So let's start again. What do you say?
Yeah,
Brett?
sounds good.
All right. I say we kick it off then with what we were just talking about, distributed workforce. So to put this into some perspective, before the pandemic, 4.7 million people, and again, I'm just referencing the United States here. Before the pandemic, 4.7 million people were already working from home in the United States. Now, in a recent Stanford report that was conducted back in August, currently almost half, so roughly 42% of the working population in the US is currently working from home. That's a very large number. Now, when we look globally, 88% of organizations worldwide made it mandatory or encouraged their employees to work from home. So, and this happened very, very, very quickly, right? I think I can even point to when this happened, and it was like mid to late March as everything started shutting down and everybody started working from home and being told to work from home.
As soon as sports got canceled, that's when everybody's like, oh, uh-oh.
Right. And what was even more incredible about this is to watch the organizations and companies that were prepared to do this and the ones that weren't. And I have a lot of friends in the IT space, and many of them have told me that the 3 to 4 week period after everything started shutting down in mid-March, they have never worked harder in their lives.
Yeah, they had to set it all up.
Because they had to come up with a way to completely distribute their company's workforce so everybody could work from home. And it is not an easy undertaking by any ways or means to do that, especially if you're not built from the get-go to do that and don't have existing systems and infrastructure. So I think this was there was a lot of wake-up calls for a lot of organizations as to, wow, we really dropped the ball on this. But on a positive note, a lot of them, from the research I've seen and some business leaders I've talked to, are realizing, well, if we can distribute our workforce so quickly using technology, what else can we use technology for to make our business more efficient? So that's some good news out of this whole thing. So what is my prediction then? What is my prediction for the distributed workforce? Well, this is only going to continue in 2021. I think we all can agree on that. I think we are going, if we already not have seen this, we are going to see a very large boom in cloud infrastructure. So AWS and Azure are going to make a lot of money in the coming year. And I think a lot of employers, a lot of companies are going to consolidate their commercial real estate and leases on a lot of buildings that they may not need anymore. And I think employers are going to start hiring from all over the world because working locally, that was a huge constraint, especially when you had to go into work, you can only focus on local workforce, right? Or you had to relocate people. Well, I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. And employers are no longer reliant on local workforce and local employees. So I think we're going to see a hiring from all over the world, no matter what company you are, going to be able to do that. I mean, we already can do that now. We're going to be doing it even more in 2021, which is going to increase the competition for jobs, which means that every single person must increase their skill set, because with more competition means organizations are going to go with the most qualified people. And if we're starting to hire from a global workforce of skilled folks, well, those who are not skilled are going to potentially be going up against somebody from a completely different country, potentially, who has the skill set. So this is going to be crucial, but that is my prediction for the distributed workforce. I don't know what thoughts you have on that, Brett.
I don't have any thoughts on any of this.
Okay, so
throw me some balls here, because I've never really cared.
Somebody who just started working from home this year because of COVID, what has been your experience with it? Like, Do you think your company handled the transition well? Do you personally like it? Do you see it continuing? Like,
Well,
what are
to
your
me,
thoughts?
they handled it pretty well because we're all safe at home. I'm not sure if I was one of the 20 people that got fired, they say they handle it well. There's different views, I'm sure. If I was fired, I'd probably say they didn't. But I wasn't.
We'll see. And since you're still doing double duty, of course, with your full-time job in Red Fox AI. I mean, of course, you could do all of your Red Fox AI work remotely going into
Yeah.
all this, but your company, of course, moving into this, the one that you work for, which will hopefully be transitioning you out of soon, they had to transition to, of course, a full distributed
Correct.
workforce.
So, well, manufacturing had to stay there, obviously, because they have to build the products. But
Right.
all those people that have computers can just go home and work from home.
And so far from what you've
It's
told me,
been
you've
pretty
loved
nice.
it.
Sometimes I do miss my coworkers, and I'd like to go and socialize, but you know, for the most part, it's been pretty good. I'm just walking out of bed and taking 5 steps to my computer each day. It's been pretty nice.
Well, see, and that's how I think maybe office space is going to
Yeah.
transform, right? I think that they're going to become more social centers, I think, for meetings. Because I'll be honest, as efficient as Zoom meetings are, there's nothing like an in-person, face-to-face meeting with people. So I think they're going to become more centers of meetings and social gatherings, is what I see happening. And I'm sure, there's still people who are going to want to go into an office. Like, I know for me, the moment I can start going places again to work, I'm going to do that because, as much as I'm able to work from my home, I notice that I'm not necessarily personality wise designed to do it every single
Yeah, it's
day.
going to be weird to see when
So-
it's going to be socially acceptable for companies to bring people back to work on a mass scale. Because I don't know.
I'd say
What do you think? Like the summer? The summer?
I think
you
it's going to
I don't
be
know.
at least halfway through next year. It's going to depend on how many people
And
choose
what-
to get vaccinated and how
And
low the
is it even
case
going to be
numbers drop.
socially acceptable, even like in the sense of, I mean, companies probably realize how much money they can save by not sending people overseas and just having Zoom meetings. Like, will we
and
ever
we'll
see
get
that
into that
again? Are
in-
people going to send?
We'll get into that in the next
okay.
the next
All
thing
right.
I want to talk about here. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on distributed workforce, of course, which has a lot to do with technology because I've said for a very long time, especially in this day and age, as long as you have a smartphone, a laptop, or a tablet and an internet connection, you have an office space. So just something to keep in mind as you think about what could be in store for next year. Second thing, skills gap. So this is something I've recently started doing some research into over the last year and a half or so, and have been talking a lot about this year. But this is a growing issue all over the world, and I think it will continue into 2021. So as we know, COVID destroyed many jobs around the world that more than likely will never come back, partially due to innovations in technology and partially due to behavior shifts in consumers, right? Both of those kind of go hand in hand. And again, I don't mean to sound like Mr. Negative here, saying that there will be many jobs that.
I've said this to you before, like technology kills one job and it opens up 5 more.
Correct, but it's that thought process shift that a
Well,
lot of
hurry up with the
people
thought
have
process.
a hard time with.
Like I care
Okay,
about
Brett.
your thought process. Hurry it up. Slow us all down because you can't think appropriately.
Okay. Well, with that, some industries, of course, that have been very hard hit by COVID-19 that are going to be probably changed forever because of this, due to these innovations in technology and shifts in consumer behavior. First and foremost, hospitality, right? So just the travel industry. You look at Airbnb, right, who was just on a rocket ship into the far regions of space with how much growth they were experiencing before this. And of course, we recently know their IPO is $101 billion, so they're still valuable, but they were hit hard by this. You look at all of the major hotel chains who relied on not only recreational travel, but business travel. So I think what we're going to see, of course, as we head into 2021 is more travel is still going to be relatively localized. People aren't going to be traveling far and wide en masse like they were pre-pandemic. It's still going to be a lot of local travel and a much deeper expansion of virtual experiences. I truly can't believe, I think it was over the summer, a whole bunch of musical artists from all over the world got together in a live concert on television. And although it was virtual, it was still pretty cool. And you still got a relatively decent experience. Of course, you're missing the atmosphere of being around thousands of people and the sound and all that, but you still could see all these different artists from the comfort of your living room. And if you had a really good stereo system, I mean, it's the next best thing, right? So, and there's been a lot of virtual experiences. A lot of conferences have switched to virtual, and they've been able to do it really well. I mean, we're only going to see that grow, and I think it's going to be a continuous offering from here on out. Air travel. So, of course, air travel was, again, on an incredible boom before the pandemic, and now it has been hit very hard by this. And a majority of air travel, most people don't realize, was actually business trips, companies sending people to different places, whether that be domestically or internationally. Of course, there was a lot of recreational air travel, but a majority of it was business trips. Well, I think what's going to happen in 2021 and beyond is, because everybody now has gotten so used to video conferencing, that a lot of companies are going to realize, wow, instead of sending this person all the way out to, say, China to conduct a business deal, that can be done over a secure video conference, and you can save the time, the air travel, the reimbursements, the hotel costs. So it's going to shift drastically here. Air travel, of course, is always going to be around, but that's I think kind of the new model we're going to see heading into 2021 and beyond with air travel. Film and entertainment.
That's a big old
hit very hard by
you can see the adjustments
pandemic.
from like Disney and stuff just going to streaming.
And we'll talk about that in a second here. So, of course, we've seen movie theaters specifically hit very hard by this. And of course, over the last decade, we've seen the rise of streaming services where, of course, for so long, it was really Netflix and Hulu were the only two players in town, and really only Netflix if you want to get down to the nitty-gritty stats of all of it. But because of COVID-19, there has been a shift towards digital distribution of media, unlike anything we have seen in the last 10 years, especially now given that Disney, of course, one of the largest entertainment and media companies in the world, has openly said that they plan to shift a majority of their resources moving forward into Disney Plus, their streaming service, to digitally deliver content. And now you have Warner Brothers, of course, one of the world's largest film studios, openly admitting that, I guess not admitting, but openly saying that in 2021, every major release, in conjunction with being released to the theater, will also be released to their HBO Max streaming service on day one.
Bye theaters. There's no need
for
more.
That is an innovation of technology, right? And again, you could see this coming, but it just needed a push, and COVID-19 was the push. I'm not saying, my prediction isn't all movie theaters are going to close, because I love actually going to the movies. I really do. I love the experience of it. Brett can attest to this.
You'll still see a blockbuster
There's nothing
here and there.
Right. There's nothing like going to see, for example, Avengers Endgame in a packed movie theater with a bunch of people who are as passionate about the movie as you are, and you're cheering the characters on. There's no supplement for that, and that will continue. But there definitely is going to be more of an emphasis on digital distribution for sure moving forward. Restaurants, very, 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 very hard hit by COVID-19. I think what we're going to see in 2021 and beyond is a very large increase in on-demand delivery. And I hate to say it, and I hope I'm wrong, but a reduction in foot traffic. And this is just a behavior shift, right? A lot of people are realizing that it's much easier to get delivery than it is to go to a restaurant. I'm not saying, of course, that people are going to stop going to restaurants, because again, there is nothing like going to a restaurant with friends and family and the atmosphere. I mean, you can only, you can only replicate that experience with delivery.
Just sum this all up and say, pretty much, we're going to go back to normal, but less normal.
Right.
For everything.
Or the next normal is what I've been saying. So as you look at restaurants, people will still go, but a lot more people are going to be using delivery services. And that is incredibly apparent with the recent pre-DoorDash IPO. I think it was like of $60 billion or something like that. DoorDash being one of the most popular food delivery apps here in the US. I know in Asia, Grab is a really popular one. Of course, we also have Uber Eats. We have Postmates. We have locally here in Madison, a company called Eat Street. So like these companies aren't going away, and they're going to have a very bright future ahead of them. But it's also going to depend on how the restaurants adjust their business model to accommodate for all the money they're actually using these delivery apps. But that's a behavior shift. So really, as I talk about a couple of these, as more people begin to rely on technology, automation will increase dramatically and many jobs will no longer exist. However, new jobs will come into existence if we let them. However, as I talk about the skills gap, most of the global workforce is ill-prepared to meet the demands of the data economy. Very much so. Many upon millions of people do not have the skills to meet the demands of this new economy that is very, very tech-driven. So what is my overall prediction here? This is only going to get worse before it gets better. Unfortunately, governments are going to continue investing in old jobs and industries versus new industries that can leverage emerging technology that actually will create new jobs and replace the old ones. I don't think we're going to see a drastic change in this. I think we're going to see the fear start to take hold of this automation. More people are going to get angry at it, and we're going to see a knee-jerk reaction of a lot of governments to try and protect the old versus investing in the new. I could be wrong. I think there'll be a lot of places around the world where that doesn't happen, but there'll be more places around the world where they'll try to hang on to old jobs. Yeah. Let's just say that, unfortunately. And we're just going to get to a point where there's going to be so many unemployed people or people who lack the skills necessary to meet the demands of the new economy that they're finally going to have to act. But that's my prediction for the skills gap, and it's something I will continue to be bullish on heading into next year. Next up, retail and commerce, or retail and e-commerce. So just some stunning statistics here. So in 2020, e-commerce is projected to grow by 20%, while department stores are expected to decline by 60%.
Obvious. It was obvious without COVID.
Now, this was already happening, and COVID just sped it up. There's always winners and losers in things like this, right? Well, Amazon and Walmart are the winners, while stores that did not innovate fast enough, and unfortunately small business, are the losers. And that's why, if you have small businesses, no matter where you're at around the world, support them, because the convenience of online shopping,
I've been supporting my local gym because I still want to be there when I can go back to the gym and it's not a petri dish.
Right. Brett continues to pay for the gym by paying every month and not go.
Being lazy and not canceling it. I'm supporting them.
Even though your local gym is part of a larger corporation that
they're
has gyms
the
all
smallest
over the country.
Of the largest. Okay. Chill.
Okay, Brett. So what is my prediction? Well, this is only going to increase, and very soon Jeff Bezos will be wearing a wig made completely of $100 bills.
What? What'd you just say? What'd you just say? Say that again.
Because he has so much money. I said my prediction is that e-commerce is only going to increase, and very soon Jeff Bezos will be wearing a wig made completely of $100 bills. Get it? Because he's bald.
Yeah, cue ball.
And until he has so much money.
I'm just picturing like George Washington, but with $100 bills on his head.
That's exactly how I thought of it as well.
I mean, like, he can use,
next up,
he can use rolls of toilet paper that are $100 bills. It doesn't matter to him. He makes more money than one person in their lifetime when he's done taking a poop. Like when he goes to the bathroom and comes out of it, he's made more money than you ever will in your lifetime.
Always
You're
putting
welcome.
Things into perspective.
Oh, by the way, I don't know the actual numbers, but something like $1 million, if you calculate it out in like 1 second, like seconds, that's like 12 days. If you calculate $1 billion out in seconds, that's like 31,000 years. So that's the difference between $1 million and $1 billion. And that guy has 200 of them. That's insane.
Yep. All because he decided to sell books online back in the 90s. Anyhow, moving right along, Data privacy and security, something I am very, very passionate about and will continue to be. So, as we've seen in 2020, there are more people on social media than ever before, 24/7, plus more technology equals more awareness. A little formula I just came up there, not scientifically proven, but hopefully it makes sense. So, as we're on these social media platforms more, as we're more cognizant of the technology we're using in our day-to-day lives, just naturally we have more awareness over what they're actually doing. And I truly think ad-driven revenue models that rely solely on people's data are going to start suffering. And people may think I'm crazy saying this, but I start connecting the dots here, and this recent antitrust case against Facebook is a very early sign of what's to come. And it's not just Facebook that's going to suffer. Google is going to suffer as well. And really, I think in the long term, any company that has decided to use subsidized ad-driven revenue or subsidize their company with primarily ad-driven revenue that relies on collecting people's data in the most invasive ways possible are going to suffer. And I really think the value of the invisible zeros and ones are going to start becoming apparent.
You're talking like when they're being
So
pumped
what
with
is
official money based off of their
well,
no,
I just
the
think
invisible
people are
zeros
starting
and ones you're talking about.
all the data that we give Facebook and Google and really any tech company.
Oh, I thought you were talking about money.
Never
mind.
No. I'm talking about the fact that we've gone this long without really assigning any value to the data that we give up to use these services. And people are really starting to become aware and cognizant of that. Unlike any other point we've seen in time, I've really noticed
like
this
if I'm giving you my data,
and
you better pay me for that data because you're making money. You're making money off me for free.
It's not even just the compensation part of it. It's about how it's being used and who it's being used by. And I really think we're on a cliff. No, not a cliff. We're on a tipping point here where these business models are going to suffer greatly as some certain things play out here. So what is my prediction? Well, I think as we head into next year and beyond, more world governments are going to begin cracking down on data privacy and security regulations. Some really good regulations and some really knee-jerk bad ones. And I think we're going to start seeing people having more of a choice over what data can and cannot be collected. We've already seen Apple do this with iOS 14, where you can now choose what pieces of data to give up to applications. And they're going to be implementing a new feature next year that Facebook very much does not like in terms of data collection. I highly encourage you to read up on that because it's far too much to explain in the time we have, but read up on that. It's a new data privacy feature that Apple is going to release come next year that is going to very much restrict the amount of data that Facebook can collect.
I just told you to Google it, so I was wondering if you could get more specific on what to Google.
Well, I just told you what to Google.
Something that's coming in the next year.
I would just Google Apple data privacy regulation Facebook, and or Apple data privacy feature iOS Facebook or something like that, and you'll find it. But as these regulations start coming into existence, we all need to ensure that they serve the needs of everyone and not just a few. Because if we don't, they will just serve the needs of a few. The tech companies that these regulations can potentially restrict have a lot of money and a lot of power. So it's very important that everybody is cognizant of how we want to start treating data and protecting it for people. Quick shout out to the Open Voice Network, an organization that is near and dear to my heart that I'm a part of, for the work that they've done on data privacy and security this year as it relates to voice assistant tech. We have a long way to go, but it's a starting point, and it is going to permeate far beyond just voice. So that is that is my prediction and thoughts on data privacy and security as we head into 2021.
Okay.
And lastly, I think we are going to see a very large boom just in general in artificial intelligence, voice technology, and augmented reality or mixed reality technologies. So, with having helped us solve so many problems during the pandemic, specifically, I'm referring to AI here, more and more organizations are going to investigate how tech can be applied to automate various parts of their business, specifically artificial intelligence. Again, of course, AI is still in its infancy. It can only do one thing incredibly well, solve very specific problems within a business. But a lot of eyes have been opened now to the possibilities. And we are going to see, I think, there are a lot of startups in AI now, but I think we are going to see a boom in that in 2021 and beyond, startups that are solely focused on industry-specific AI, serving only a specific problem within a specific industry. And these startups are either going to be purchased or become incredibly wealthy over the next 10 years. And it's going to begin, I think, next year, or at least grow from where it's currently at. So shifting to voice technology, during the pandemic, more people have begun to experiment with their voice assistants beyond just the basics. And this is only going to grow. There's a lot of research out there right now, research that's been conducted this past year by voicebot.ai and the Edison research report that's out there. So, I think smart speaker adoption may slow. I think we're starting to hit the plateau of people buying all these different smart speaker devices. But I think what we will see grow is people using them in ways that we have not seen before, in new and different ways. I think we're going to start to see that happening. I also think industry-specific voice assistants will start to emerge, or brand-specific voice assistants. Shout out to Bobby Bryant and DOS. And Bobby is somebody I've gotten to know a bit this year, and he has built an industry-specific voice assistant for real estate. And I think he is onto something there, because I think we're going to see that for multiple different industries, industry-specific voice assistants solving specific problems. Now, of course, with voice tech, we still have a long way to go. There are so many frustrations right? Because so many people still don't know what to do with what they have. But we're going to start overcoming that, I think, in 2021. And that whole problem of people not knowing what to do with what they have is something I've really been noodling on.
Sorry.
And I hope
I
was going to say, and I hope that those of you who are in voice tech are thinking about that as well.
The more I've been developing for Alexa and all these voice assistants, when I first started, you go by that graph where you build confidence up. You think you're the best, and then you're like, oh, I suck actually. And then you go down, and then you gradually go back up to, I forgot what the graph was called. I sent it to you last week. Anyways, I thought AI and all that technology was like 1997 internet. I'm thinking we're at like 1992 right now. 1993 internet.
Could very well be. I mean, it's hard to compare, because AI voice and AR, I mean, it's just so different from what the internet and personal computers were. So
it is different.
It's hard to make a comparison, but I think we all can agree it's still pretty early days for most of these.
Yeah.
So with voice, augmented reality, mixed reality, however you want to think of it, but we start looking at how augmented reality is going to change things next year, and how it already has been. Of course, we know Apple is becoming very bullish on augmented reality, which I think is very much a precursor to what they have in store next year. If you want more information on that, please listen to our most recent episode with Robert Scoble. The entire episode is focused on what Apple has coming down the pipeline. But I will just end this part by saying that what Apple plans to release next year will be the largest paradigm shift in technology, at least consumer technology, since the iPhone, very much as it relates to augmented reality and spatial audio, which of course actually plays into voice technology, specifically the spatial audio part, which I actually dove down a rabbit hole this week, and that's some incredible stuff. And if you're in voice tech, start looking into spatial audio. Forget everything you know about stereo sound. Start looking into spatial audio.
Yeah.
So that's the boom that I think is coming in AI voice and AR. Anything you want to add to that, Brett?
No, I think you did a good job.
Thanks, Brett.
You're welcome.
Anyhow,
I hate making predictions.
I know you do. And
Just
truthfully,
like, I don't know.
I could be wrong. I could be
Yeah,
wrong on
that's
all
good.
of this. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that I have the magical wand that allows me to cast a spell to peer into the future here, but
we could have a solar flare hit the Earth next year, and all the
Right.
technology rise, and we're cavemen.
I'm
next year.
just
Who
I'm
knows?
trying to connect the dots from what has been and what is current to what could be in the future. And I feel like I've gotten better at this over the last few years. So call me crazy, but this is what I think could very well happen. So that's that. That's predictions for 2021. I think we wrapped it up pretty nice, Brett.
Yeah, I think that was good. Yeah, I like the reflection. Reflection was fun to talk about.
Yeah, and I think you, I, and the rest of the world will all be toasting on 11:59 p.m. December 31st as that happens all around the world.
Yeah.
I think
At least
the entire world will be.
I'm hoping at least half, or maybe optimistically 1/4 of 2021 will be like 2020.
I'm hoping none of it will be like 2020.
Well,
I mean, we know coronavirus is still going to be around, but
yeah, I'm just saying.
I'm just saying it's not even just coronavirus; it's all of it for me. So,
yeah.
And
I'm hoping like within the next 10 years, we're not saying, man, 2020 ain't got nothing on 20.
Oh my god. Oh my god, I hope not.
Remember 2016 we were saying that was the worst year ever.
What?
We were
what
so
losers?
Naive. We were
what
so
losers to say that.
We were so naive
compared to now.
We had no idea.
No.
God.
Anyways,
I mean,
again,
it's really not a bad year unless you die.
Right. As I said to begin with, of course, we focused on all of the bad that happened with 2020, but I'm sure if you look around in your personal life, there hopefully is some good that came out of this year. I know there has been for me. I wish I would have maybe tossed some more positives into this mix, but I really just, wanted to be direct with how this year went and the scope of everything. But as we wind this episode down, and since this is our last episode of 2020, episode 71, can you believe we're at 71 episodes now?
Yeah, it's crazy.
71 episodes. But as this is the last episode of 2020, I would just like to end by extending the most sincerest of thank yous to every single one of you who has chosen to listen to the Artificial Podcast this year. If you're a consistent listener, thank you for your constant support. Any feedback that you've been able to give us, it's that we really do take a look through all of the reviews and feedback that we get to figure out how we can continuously make this better. And it is very, very much appreciated. So if we didn't have an audience, we wouldn't be doing this, of course, right? I think I can speak for Brett saying that. And it's a lot of fun. We really do enjoy doing this every week. I know it has allowed me personally to connect with so many different people, like the people I mentioned earlier, that had we not had a podcast, I don't really think I talked to a lot of these people.
No, I would have never even heard of these people. Right.
And hopefully by bringing them on the show and allowing you to learn from them, you've maybe thought of something a bit differently is my goal. So with that, thank you very, very, very much for all your support. Thank you for listening, truly from the bottom of my heart. And before I end here, Brett, anything else you'd like to mention in that respect?
I thank you to all of our listeners, and I appreciate you all, and I hope you enjoy listening to future episodes.
Yeah.
And tell your friends and family.
Yes, tell your friends and family.
Yeah, and write a review. That really helps, and give a like.
Yes, please. If you haven't,
whatever platform you're on, give a like or I don't know.
Yes. Please, if you have not yet written a review, please do that, whether that be an Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify. Those reviews help way more than you think. And again, it also gives us a lot of feedback.
Go to subscribe to our YouTube channel too.
Yes.
Even if you
and-
don't watch our YouTube channel, just go subscribe and have it sit there.
Yes, please don't forget that we do have social media channels. We're on Facebook. We do have a Facebook group that we're going to invest more in next year. We are on YouTube. All you have to do is search for the Artificial Podcast. We're also on Twitter, of course. So please feel free to follow us on any of those platforms. Our goal is to be more active on social in 2021 as well. But really, with all that being said, thank you so much again. I hope that, we both hope that you have an incredible holiday season. And as I always say, stay hungry, stay foolish, and of course, right now, stay healthy. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Artificial
Intelligence.
voice recognition machine learning.
Robot.
You've been listening to the Artificial Podcast with your host, Nick Myers.
Nick Myers.
To stay up to date with all our latest episodes, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. To learn more about how your organization can benefit by unlocking the power of AI and voice, visit www.redfox-ai.com. Until next time.